In the quiet hours of the morning, when the mist still lingers over the gardens of Heian-kyo, the tea servants of the imperial court begin their day. The year is 950, and the Heian period is a time of refined elegance, where every gesture, every object, and every ritual carries deep meaning. But behind the grandeur of the aristocracy, there are those whose hands prepare the tea, those who move in silence, ensuring that each cup is perfect. Tonight, we step into their world. Imagine, if you will, a small lantern-lit room in the servants' quarters of a noble estate. The air is fragrant with the scent of aged wood and the faint, earthy aroma of dried tea leaves stored in lacquered caddies. A young servant, perhaps 16 years old, kneels on a woven tatami mat, her hands resting lightly on her lap. She wears a simple, unpatterned koso robe of pale blue, its sleeves just barely brushing the floor as she moves. Her hair is tied back neatly, free from ornament. This is not a place for extravagance. Her name is unimportant to history, but her work is essential. Before dawn, she rises. The estate is still asleep, save for the occasional shuffle of another servant or the distant call of a night heron settling in the garden pond. Her first task is to prepare the charcoal, not too much, not too little, just enough to heat the water to the perfect temperature. The brazier, a simple bronze vessel, sits in the corner of the tea preparation room. She arranges the coals with practiced hands, each piece placed deliberately, like stones in a Zen garden. The faint glow of embers casts warm shadows on the paper-lined walls. Outside, the world is still dark. The servant slides open a wooden shutter, just enough to see the first hints of light creeping over the eastern hills. The air is cool, carrying the scent of dew on moss and the faint perfume of plum blossoms from the garden. She takes a deep breath. This is her favorite moment, before the demands of the day begin. Soon, the noblewomen of the household will wake, and the tea must be ready. The water is drawn from a well in the courtyard, cold and clear. She pours it into a kettle, the sound a soft, steady trickle. The brazier's heat is just beginning to rise, and soon the water will warm. Not boil, never boil, for that would spoil the tea's delicate flavor. As she waits, she reaches for a small wooden box, its surface worn smooth from years of use. Inside are the tea leaves, carefully dried and powdered, their scent deep and slightly bitter. This is the life of a tea servant in Heian, Japan. A life of quiet precision, where every movement is measured, every detail considered. There are no grand battles here, no tales of emperors or poets, only the slow, steady rhythm of preparation, the whisper of silk, and the gentle hiss of steam rising from the kettle. In the next part, we will follow her as she prepares the tea utensils, each one a work of art in its own right, each with its own history. But for now, let the stillness of the early morning settle around you. The soft glow of the brazier, the scent of tea leaves, the distant song of a waking sparrow. As the first light of dawn filters through the paper screens, the tea servant turns her attention to the utensils laid before her. These are not mere tools. They are companions in her daily ritual, each one shaped by the hands of artisans, each with its own quiet story. She reaches for the chair, the small ceramic jar that holds the powdered tea. Its glaze is the color of twilight, a deep greenish-black with faint streaks, where the ash of the kiln once licked its surface. The jar fits perfectly in her palm, its curves worn smooth from years of use. Inside, The tea rests like powdered jade, waiting to be awakened by hot water. Next, the chasen, the tea whisk, carved from a single piece of bamboo. Its tines are delicate, frayed slightly at the ends from countless mornings of stirring. She runs a fingertip along them, feeling their flexibility. This whisk was a gift from the estate's head servant, passed down when she first took up her duties. In Heian Japan, bamboo is more than a plant. It is patience made tangible, bending but never breaking. She unfolds the chakin, a small linen cloth used to purify the tea bowl. It is bleached white, its edges frayed from countless washings in the estate stream. The act of folding and refolding it is a meditation in itself, a moment to slow the breath, to steady the hands before the work begins. The kettle's song grows louder now, a soft, bubbling murmur. Steam rises in curling tendrils, catching the pale gold of the morning light. The servant knows the water is ready not by time, but by sound. The moment the bubbles sigh like wind through reeds, that is when the heat is just right. With the chashaku, a slender scoop of aged bamboo, she measures the tea. One scoop, then two, the powder fallen like green snow into the bowl. The scent is earthy, slightly sweet, a fragrance that will linger on her sleeves long after the tea is served. Now, the water meets the tea. She pours slowly, in a thin, steady stream, watching as the powder dissolves into a froth of emerald green. The whisk moves in gentle circles, not hurried, not forced, each stroke coaxing the tea into harmony. This is the heart of her craft, the transformation of leaf and water into something greater. The nobles will never see this moment, the quiet alchemy of the servant's hands, but they will taste it in every sip. The foam should be like the foam on a mountain stream, light and fleeting. As she finishes, the estate begins to stir. Footsteps echo in the corridors. A distant voice calls orders to the kitchen. But here, in the tea room, there is still a moment of stillness. The servant bows slightly to the finished bowl, a silent thanks to the leaves, the water, the hands that shaped the tools. In the next part, we will step into the gardens where the tea herbs grow, and the servants gather the first dewdrops of the morning. But for now, let the rhythm of the whisk linger in your thoughts. The quiet dance of bamboo and water. The slow unfurling of another day in Heian-kyo. As the first light of dawn filters through the paper screens, the tea servant turns her attention to the utensils laid before her. These are not mere tools. They are companions in her daily ritual, each one shaped by the hands of artisans, each with its own quiet story. She reaches for the chair, the small ceramic jar that holds the powdered tea. Its glaze is the color of twilight, a deep greenish-black, with faint streaks where the ash of the kiln once licked its surface. The jar fits perfectly in her palm, its curves worn smooth from years of use. Inside, the tea rests like powdered jade, waiting to be awakened by hot water. Next, the chasen, the tea whisk, carved from a single piece of bamboo. Its tines are delicate, frayed slightly at the ends from countless mornings of stirring. She runs a fingertip along them, feeling their flexibility. This whisk was a gift from the estate's head servant, passed down when she first took up her duties. In Heian Japan, bamboo is more than a plant. It is patience made tangible, bending, but never breaking. She unfolds the chakin, a small linen cloth used to purify the tea bowl. It is bleached white, its edges frayed from countless washings in the estate's stream. The act of folding and refolding it is a meditation in itself, a moment to slow the breath, to steady the hands before the work begins. The kettle's song grows louder now, a soft, bubbling murmur. Steam rises in curling tendrils, catching the pale gold of the morning light. The servant knows the water is ready not by time, but by sound. The moment the bubbles sigh like wind through reeds, that is when the heat is just right. With the chashaku, a slender scoop of aged bamboo, she measures the tea. 1 scoop, then 2, the powder falling like green snow into the bowl. The scent is earthy, slightly sweet, a fragrance that will linger on her sleeves long after the tea is served. Now, the water meets the tea. She pours slowly, in a thin, steady stream, watching as the powder dissolves into a froth of emerald green. The whisk moves in gentle circles, not hurried, not forced, each stroke coaxing the tea into harmony. This is the heart of her craft, the transformation of leaf and water into something greater. The nobles will never see this moment, the quiet alchemy of the servant's hands, but they will taste it in every sip. The foam should be like the foam on a mountain stream, light and fleeting. As she finishes, the estate begins to stir. Footsteps echo in the corridors. A distant voice calls orders to the kitchen. But here, in the tea room, there is still a moment of stillness. The servant bows slightly to the finished bowl, a silent thanks to the leaves, the water, the hands that shape the tools. In the next part, we will step into the gardens where the tea herbs grow, and the servants gather the first dewdrops of the morning. But for now, let the rhythm of the whisk linger in your thoughts. The quiet dance of bamboo and water. The slow unfurling of another day in Heian-kyo. The tea servant steps across the kitchen threshold just as the first shafts of sunlight pierce the smoke rising from the hearth. This is a world of shadows and steam, where the day's meals take shape under the hands of those who will never taste them. The air hums with quiet industry, the bubbling of pots, the hiss of damp wood on coals, the occasional murmur between cooks as they pass bowls like sacred objects. She sets her basket of herbs beside a worn wooden table, its surface stained by decades of turmeric and soy. The head cook, a woman with sleeves tied back with hemp cord, nods toward the mortar and pestle. No words are needed. The servant knows her task. She begins grinding fresh ginger into paste, the fibrous root yielding under the stone's weight, releasing its sharp perfume into the humid air. Around her, the kitchen unfolds like a well-rehearsed dance. In one corner, an apprentice kneads dough for steamed buns, his knuckles pressing into the sticky mass with metronomic precision. Near the hearth, a girl barely 12 turns skewers of river fish over coals, the skins blistering into golden cracks. The tea servant works among them, another silent figure in the ballet of sustenance. Her hands move to the rice, not the polished white grains served to the nobility, but the humble genmei, brown rice, still cloaked in its bran. She measures it into a bamboo colander, rinsing it under water drawn from the courtyard well. The grains swirl in the bowl like tiny pebbles, their earthy scent rising with the steam. This will simmer slowly in a pot with red beans, becoming the servant's morning meal, a humble dish called sekihan, though today there are no celebrations to justify its festive hue. The kitchen's heartbeat is the great irori hearth, its sunken fire pit lined with river stones. Here, the main meals for the nobility take shape. clear soups with floating lobes of tofu, delicate as clouds. Simmered eggplant, its purple skin split to reveal flesh like custard. The tea servant adds a handful of her gathered chrysanthemum leaves to a broth of dried bonito and kelp. The stock will be strained a dozen times until it's as clear as amber. Now comes her most careful task, arranging the trays. Each dish must be placed according to unwritten rules. Pickles to the northeast, soup to the southwest, rice at the celestial position where the noble's right hand will naturally fall. A sprig of maple, still damp with dew, is laid across the edge of the tray like a painter's final stroke. Food in Heian Japan is not merely eaten, it is composed. As she works, the kitchen's rhythm shifts. The head cook tastes a broth with the tip of a cedar spoon, then adds a pinch of salt from a seashell container. A maid hurries in with fresh bamboo shoots wrapped in fern leaves, their cut ends still weeping sap. The tea servant steps back, her part in the morning symphony complete. Soon, others will carry these trays through covered corridors, their footsteps silent on the waxed boards. In the next part, we will follow the tea servant to the heart of the estate, where the nobility stirs behind silk curtains and every object speaks in whispers. But for now, let the kitchen's warmth linger. The slow dance of hands and ingredients, the alchemy of smoke and patience, the unspoken language of those who feed an empire's elegance. The tea servant glides along the covered walkway, her shadow merging with the lattice patterns cast by the morning sun. Before her, two senior maids part layers of saffron-colored curtains, each movement slow, reverent, as if unveiling a shrine. Beyond lies the innermost reception room, where the ladies of the household take their morning meal. Here, even the air is different, scented with aloes wood and the faintest trace of clove from an inkstone. The noble women sit behind a low folding screen painted with wispy willows, their forms visible only as silhouettes. A cascade of layered sleeves here, the curve of a pinned-up hairstyle there. The tea servant kneels at the designated spot, her forehead nearly touching the tatami as she sets down the tray. Protocol demands she become part of the architecture now, present but unacknowledged, like a shelf holding a precious scroll. Through lowered lashes, she observes the ritual unfolding. A lady's hand, nails tinted with gardenia paste, emerges to lift the teacup. The bowl is turned precisely 3 times in her palm before drinking, a silent homage to the craftsman who shaped it. The tea servant knows every nuance, when to edge forward to refill a cup, when to retreat like the tide. Her entire existence in this moment is measured in breaths, the noblewoman's inhalation signaling satisfaction, an exhale hinting at some imperceptible lack. Breakfast here is an ephemeral art. A quail egg, its shell gilded with beaten gold leaf, rests atop a maple leaf no larger than a child's thumb. Pickled cherries are arranged to resemble scattered petals across a dish of snow-white ceramic. The noblewomen murmur verses to one another, not about the food, but about the melancholy beauty of dew evaporating from spider webs. The servant understands. This is not nourishment, but theater. When the meal concludes, the remnants are removed with the same ceremony as their presentation. A single grain of rice left behind would be an affront. A tea stain on the tray's edge, a catastrophe. The tea servant moves with the precision of a scribe copying sutras, lifting each dish at the exact angle that prevents her shadow from crossing the noble's robes. As she backs away, her sleeve brushes a stray chrysanthemum petal from the veranda, erasing all traces of her presence. Returning to the servants' corridor, she exhales for what feels like the first time in hours. The contrast is jarring. Here, a scullery maid laughs behind her hand at some private joke, her teeth stained slightly blue from tasting too much pickled plum. The tea servant presses her palms against the cool plaster wall, grounding herself in this reality of chipped bowls and work-reddened knuckles. In the next part, we will slip away from human eyes entirely, into the paper-lined stillness of the estate's library, where even servants move like ghosts among the poetry. But for now, let the curtains whisper linger. The dance of shadows behind silk. The art of being unseen in a world that prizes only beauty's surface. The estate's library is a world of suspended breath. Here, where the afternoon light slants through latticed windows, dust motes dance like forgotten characters drifting from unrolled scrolls. The tea servant enters not to read, for she has not been taught the shapes of words, but to perform her most solitary duty, the airing of manuscripts. Her fingers, usually so sure with tea utensils, hover uncertainly over the stacked documents. These are not the flamboyant poetry collections displayed in the nobles' quarters, but practical records, household accounts on sturdy hemp paper, medicinal manuals with page edges worn soft from generations of herbalists' consultations. She lifts them as one might lift a sleeping bird, cradling each bundle to the veranda where the dry breeze awaits. The process is methodical. Scrolls are unrolled just enough to let air circulate, their ends weighted with smooth river stones. Bound books rest open like butterflies sunning their wings, their pages revealing curious sketches. A physician's diagram of a pulse point. A cook's careful rendering of ideal dumpling pleats. For one tranquil hour, the servant becomes guardian to knowledge she'll never comprehend. In a corner, she notices a discarded practice sheet, some nobleman's abandoned calligraphy. The characters stagger drunkenly across the paper, their strokes thick with hesitation. How strange, she thinks, that those who wield brushes like extensions of their souls once struggled just as she struggles now with the bamboo tea whisk. She touches a fingertip to the failed characters, smudging nothing. The ink is centuries dry. Time slips by unnoticed here. The sun moves from one window lattice to the next, painting shifting grids across the floorboards. Somewhere beyond these walls, the estate bustles. Horses being groomed, silk robes beaten clean with wicker paddles. But in the library, even sounds seem muted, as if passing through layers of unsent letters. As she rescues the scroll, a single phrase flashes before her eyes. Not that she can read it, but the shape is unforgettable. A cascade of characters tumbling down the page like a waterfall frozen mid-descent. Later, when she grinds tea leaves into powder, she'll find herself recreating that rhythm with her pestle. The memory of words she cannot understand flowing through her hands, nonetheless. When the light begins to fade, she returns each document to its designated place. The physician's manual goes beside the box of dried moxa leaves. The household accounts are arranged by season. Last is a slender volume of love poems, left behind by some distracted noblewoman, its cover still faintly perfumed with plum blossom incense. The servant hesitates, then tucks it slightly behind thicker tomes, where it might escape notice a while longer. In the next part, we will step into evening's embrace, where the servant's day concludes not with poetry, but with the quiet camaraderie of those who work when the moon rises. But for now, let the library's silence envelop you. The unread stories, the ink-stained fingerprints of the long-departed, the peaceful melancholy of preserving what one cannot possess. Daylight fades from the estate, like ink dissolving in water. In the servants' quarters, where paper lanterns glow like captured fireflies, the tea servant finally removes her outer robe. The pale blue fabric now carrying the day's memories. A tea stain near the sleeve, the faintest trace of library camphor. A single chrysanthemum petal, clinging stubbornly to the hem. This is the hour when hierarchies soften. The head cook rubs liniment into a kitchen maid's flour-dusted shoulders. The old gardener, who spent the afternoon training wisteria vines along the western wall, now shares a clay flask of barley liquor with the stable master. Their laughter is quiet but deep, the kind that comes from bones weary with honest labor. Seated on a worn veranda step, the tea servant lets another girl, the dyer's apprentice, braid her hair. The apprentice's fingers are permanently stained indigo up to the second knuckle, leaving faint blue trails like river maps across the servant's dark tresses. They speak little. Their friendship lives in these small touches, in the way the apprentice always saves her a portion of sweet bean paste, stolen from the kitchen. The night's modest feast appears, cold buckwheat noodles salvaged from the noble's untouched trays, a shared bowl of pickled radish glowing sunset pink in the lantern light. An elderly maid, her back bent like a wind-blown pine, recounts for the 100th time how she once served Minamoto no Yorimitsu's third wife, a story that grows more elaborate with each telling. The servants listen politely, hiding smiles behind their sleeves. Some truths are better polished by time. The tea servant examines her own hands in the flickering light. The left thumb bears a pale scar from a careless moment with a brazier last winter. The right palm's calluses align perfectly with the curve of her bamboo whisk, a map of her days etched in skin. Nearby, the dyer's apprentice displays her latest pride, a fingertip newly calloused from twisting silk threads, proof of her growing skill. As the moon climbs, the group dwindles. The elderly maid retires first, then the stable boys with their armfuls of straw for bedding. Soon only the tea servant and the dyer's apprentice remain, shoulders touching as they pass a final persimmon slice back and forth. Their silence now is different from the careful quiet of noble chambers. This silence breathes, expands, needs no decoration. In her narrow sleeping alcove, the tea servant folds her robe with the same care she once reserved for dew-collecting silk. Tomorrow will mirror today, the pre-dawn charcoal, the whisk's familiar rhythm. But for these few hours, she exists only for herself. As sleep pulls at her, she imagines the estate above her, the nobles dreaming in perfumed darkness, the library scrolls exhaling centuries of ink, the garden's lotus leaves unfurling beneath the stars. In the next part, we will slip into dreams, not of grand parades or imperial intrigues, but of the small, secret wishes that flutter beneath the servant's sleeping eyelids. But for now, let the night's softness surround you, the shared warmth of those who labor unseen, the comfort of calluses earned, the quiet understanding that tomorrow's tea will taste just as it did yesterday. And that is its own kind of peace. Sleep comes to the tea servant, not as a curtain falling, but as a slow wading into the shallows of a familiar stream. Her dreams tonight are not of the grand fantasies that haunt noble women, no longing for imperial favor or tragic romance, but something quieter, simpler. Tonight, she dreams of hands. First, her mother's hands, rough from rice paddies, yet impossibly gentle when braiding her hair as a child. Then the wrinkled palms of the old tea master who taught her to judge water temperature by the pitch of bubbles. But now, in the way of dreams, these hands become something more. They are cradling not tools or children, but chrysanthemum blossoms, each petal perfectly formed from hammered silver. The dream shifts. She stands in a moonlit garden that is both the estate's and not. The familiar lotus pond now reflects 1,000 stars instead of sky. The stepping stones float suspended above the water. With each step, her bare feet leave no impression in the moss. This is the dreamer's privilege, to pass through the world without altering it. A tea set waits on a weathered wooden table, not the precious Chinese ceramics of the nobility, but her own humble utensils. The bamboo whisk with its frayed tines, the slightly chipped bowl she secretly favors for its balance. When she lifts the kettle, the steam rises in twisting characters that dissolve before she can read them. Some messages are not meant to be kept. Now comes the dream's true gift. Seated across from her, though no chair exists, is a figure robed in light. Not a noble or a goddess, but simply herself, perfected. This other. Her moves with impossible grace, pouring tea in a continuous stream that becomes a bridge across the pond. The tea servant understands without words. This is not an aspiration, but a reminder. The beauty was always in the pouring, not the praise. As dreams do, the scene begins to fray. The silver chrysanthemums dissolve into morning dew. The star pond dims to mere water. But the feeling lingers, that fleeting moment when her calloused hands were not just tools, but artists. The dream slips away like steam from a cooling cup. She wakes not with a start, but with a slow blinking, as one returning from a long journey. The alcove is still dark, the estate silent. For 3 breaths, she lies perfectly still, chasing the fading sensation of silver petals between her fingers. Then, as she has done 1,000 mornings, she reaches for her robe. The dream will not be spoken of, not even to the dyer's apprentice. Some beauties are too fragile for daylight. In the next part, we will return to the waking world, where dawn's first light finds the servant kneeling once more before the brazier, her day beginning as it always does. But for now, let the dream's afterglow linger, the silent conversation between self and soul, the chrysanthemums that bloom only in moonlight, the peace of knowing that even the smallest life contains worlds unseen. Before the night's last star has faded, the tea servant is already kneeling at the brazier. The motions she makes now are the same as yesterday's, and the days before. Charcoal arranged in a careful pyramid, a spill of cedar bark coaxed into flame with steady breaths. There is comfort in this repetition, in knowing the world can still turn on such small, certain axes. Her dream lingers at the edges of her thoughts, not as a vision to be deciphered, but as a warmth in her palms, as if she'd truly held those silver chrysanthemums. She presses her hands briefly to the brazier's edge, letting the heat anchor her to this familiar world of clay and bamboo. The water kettle, blackened from countless mornings, accepts its place atop the coals with a soft metallic sigh. While the water heats, she performs her secret ritual. From a hidden compartment in her wooden tea caddy, she withdraws 3 precious leaves, not the powdered tea served to nobles, but whole leaves plucked last autumn from the estate's oldest tea bush. These she places in a crude clay cup made by her younger brother before he left for distant fields. The cup is lopsided, its glaze uneven, but it fits her palms as no imperial treasure ever could. This tea is for her alone. When the water reaches that perfect moment between stillness and fury, she pours it over the leaves with no whisking, no ceremony. The steam carries a deeper greenness than the powdered brew, earthy and wild. As she inhales, the scent merges with the morning. Wood smoke, damp moss, the distant tang of the kitchen's miso vats. For these few breaths, she is neither servant nor dreamer, but simply a woman awake before the world. Outside, the estate begins to stir. A maid shakes out bed linens with a sound like distant waves. The night watchman's wooden clappers signal the end of his vigil. The servant drains her cup, now bitter with oversteeped leaves, and tucks the lopsided vessel back into hiding. The ordinary tools of her duty await: the flawless whisk, the flawless bowl, the flawless motions she will perform without flaw for flawless masters. She lifts the kettle just as the water reaches the perfect pitch. Not the roaring boil of laundry cauldrons, but the wind in pines murmur prized by tea masters. The sound wraps around her like an old song half remembered. Today will be yesterday repeated. The same trays carried down the same corridors, the same unspoken criticisms hidden behind noble fans. But the memory of dawn's stolen tea lingers on her tongue, a private rebellion in each swallow. In our final part, we will follow this day to its quiet conclusion. Not an ending, but a folding, like a kimono placed carefully in a cedar chest, ready to be worn again when the wheel turns. But for now, let the ritual hold you. The certainty of charcoal catching fire. The patient journey of water from cold to perfect. The unbroken circle of a life measured in steam and silence. The day's final light bleeds into the western sky as the tea servant kneels once more before her tools. This is the quietest hour, when the nobles have retired behind painted screens, when even the kitchen's laughter has faded to murmurs. Now she performs the most sacred ritual of all, the putting away. Each motion is deliberate, reverent. The chastened whisk is examined for broken tines, none today, then placed upright in its stand to dry. The tea caddy's lacquered lid clicks shut with the sound of a story ending. She runs a finger along the rim of her favorite bowl, remembering how the morning's first steam had curled from its glaze like a beckoning spirit. The brazier's ashes still hold warmth, like memories of fire. She collects them carefully. These will be mixed with eggshells and water to polish the noble's mirrors tomorrow. Nothing is wasted in this world. Even exhaustion becomes purpose. The last ember fades as she blows on it, its glow vanishing like a closing eye. At the veranda's edge, she pauses. The garden stones glisten under rainfall, their surfaces reflecting the dim lantern light like fragments of a shattered moon. Somewhere out there, her lopsided clay cup rests hidden beneath a loose floorboard, still carrying the ghost of morning's illicit tea. She smiles, not with her lips, but with the weight of her body leaning slightly into the damp breeze. Tomorrow will come. The charcoal will be stacked, the water measured, the whisk lifted in the same eternal rhythm. But for this suspended moment between day and night, she exists outside time. A woman made of tea stains and calluses, of steam that rises only to disappear, of dreams that leave no trace but tenderness in the hands. And so we leave her there, not at an ending, but at the place where all such stories live, in the quiet continuation of ordinary miracles. The water will boil again, the tea will foam, the servant's hands will remember what her mind forgets. Somewhere beyond these walls, history shouts of emperors and battles. But here, in this amber moment, eternity tastes of slightly oversteeped genmecha and the rain's indifferent kiss. Sleep now. The tea has been poured.